Hi, how's it going guys? Origami here, welcome back to the channel. And if you guys noticed, the setup's a bit different because I'm finally playing Duel Masters PLAY'S on my PC on the End app. And hopefully this means I can sort of make content more easily and more quickly. And hopefully that means more content for you guys. So if you guys notice anything wrong with the setup, do let me know down in the comment section below because I'm still sorting it out, still tinkering. Anything wrong with the audio or video, do let me know, then I'll try to fix it. But today we're back with a deck profile, and this is going to be the first deck profile of the DMPP19 era. As you guys know, I usually only make new division deck profiles, but this season we have an interesting deck that I hit masters with for both ND as well as AD with very little changes, and this deck is the Mono Water Java Jack deck. So it's a rush beatdown deck revolving the Liquid People race. It has a good tight early game curve with a somewhat explosive, mid game plays with evolution creatures to push for the win. This is not one that I really saw being meta when the DMPP19 cards were revealed, but the results actually do speak for itself. I'll take you through the ND list, and then the AD list is just a difference of 2 SRs, I believe. So it's a pretty standard list, let's jump right into it. First up, we play 4 of the Aqua Guard, 1 mana blocker, which is also evolution material because of its race. Cheap evolution materials, especially for 1 cost, are especially important because not only do you get to put some cheap materials on board early, it also leads to a lower total mana cost for you to summon the evolutions later on in the game. For example, if you're going to summon Java Jack for 4, if you don't have a 1 cost, you need at least a 2 cost or 3 cost. It brings up your cost to sort of instantly directly evolve Java Jack from like 5 to like 6 or 7, which makes a lot of difference in this kind of beatdown deck. So this is why, low cost evolution materials are important. Additionally, it is the counter to the turn 1 Miss May. So Miss May, very popular card in the meta currently, regardless of what you're playing, as long as you're playing nature. This is like a really good ramp card. It's the counter to turn 1 Miss May because Miss May only flips when it isn't blocked, and Aqua Guard is a blocker and has more power than Miss May. So this shuts down the ridiculous value that a turn 1 Miss May would provide for a slower deck, I would say. Next up, we play 4 Aqua Evoluter for some similar reasons. 2 mana, and the relevant part of its effect is that your water evolution creatures cost 1 less to summon. They can't cost less than 1 or the number of that creature's civilization, so pretty standard. Of course, this is good to have on the board in preparation for your evolution creatures, but also because you directly evolve. But also because if you directly evolve on the same turn, it's effectively a 1 mana evolution card like Aqua Guard, because 2 mana but you reduce 1 of your evolution. So that's that. Next up, we play 4 of the Aqua Hammer Price. Whenever this creature attacks, play Judgmental Judge with your opponent. If you win, draw a card. Since this is a beatdown deck, you actually seldom sort of win the Judgmental Judge unless you're playing a rush deck that's actually faster than you, and it sort of is useful there. But mainly it's a 2-drop attacker / evolution material. If you hit your draws, better, why not? Then we have 4 of the Java Kit Aqua Boy. When this enters the battle zone, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a Liquid People, add it to your hand, otherwise put it into your graveyard. Almost everything in this deck is a Liquid People, so a 2-drop creature that draws 1 for 90% of the time is pretty sick. And this is pretty much my favorite 2-drop in this deck to play. The rest, if I have this, I would probably charge the others. Next up, we have a very familiar card. We play 4 of Fuuma Gorgonshack. Spells cost 2 more to cast. Very simple effect. We only play creatures, so it doesn't affect us at all. And as usual, great for slowing down decks that rely very heavily on spells. Do note that this itself is not a Liquid People, so you can't evolve on it, so yep, just take note of that. Next up, we play 2 of Large Gathering Aqua Brothers. A pretty complicated effect. If you have 7 or more cards in your hand during your turn, you may summon a Liquid People for no cost, and this triggers once per turn. At the end of your turn, draw a card for each of your tapped Liquid People. Yeah, it sounds very complicated and it sounds like it has a lot of value. I actually didn't start out playing this card because I didn't have it. but added it subsequently because it does have a very powerful effect if you can fulfill its conditions, and it has the potential to provide a lot of draw early if your opponent can't react to your tapped creatures. Then of course, having 7 cards in your hand, free liquid people every turn, so it's usually going to be a 4 or 5 mana evolution when you play it. But as powerful as it is, this card is a little bit tricky to play as it usually makes you tunnel vision into so much value, right? You want to play this card regardless. But the truth is, if you don't have a concrete way to proc its effects, it's just a 3 mana 1k creature which potentially sets you back quite a lot compared to the alternatives that you could have played that proc their effects instantly. Next up, moving into the 4 mana range, we have the flagship card of the deck, 4 of Gigablizzard Ultra Flash. Evolution on Liquid People, Double Breaker. When it enters the battle zone, draw 4 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand into the bottom of the deck. If you have 2 or more other Liquid People, your opponent can't choose this creature. So it's a good steady evolution that has a beneficial effect regardless of the situation. A +2 from a value perspective, but due to its wording, can improve your hand tremendously since you're actually choosing from the 4 cards and your existing hand to return to the deck. So you sort of have quite a range of cards to pick from. It getting untargetable is insane as well as a finisher. Just make sure you fulfill its condition when you're going for that killer move. Next up, in my opinion, the most important card of this whole deck, we play 4 of Aqua Elite. When this enters the battle zone, draw a card, then put an evolution Liquid People that costs 5 or less from your hand on top of this creature. So it's a +1 and a potentially free evolution on it. It's best to have an eligible evolution already in your hand so that you don't miss its effect. But clutching the evolution on its draw effect in a pinch is also a pretty good feeling. Getting to play this card on turn 4 is pretty much the most important play for this deck due to the sheer explosiveness and value of it. It's also why in most cases we don't really benefit from Aqua Evoluter's effect, because a Aqua Elite is definitely the most efficient way to be summoning your evolution creatures if you have them. And we're reaching the end soon. We play 2 of the Crystal Super Paladin, another very powerful finisher evolution on a Liquid People. When this enters the battle zone, return one of your opponent's psychic creatures to their owner's hyperspatial zone. Whenever this attacks, return all creatures that have blocker to their owner's hands. Double Breaker. So already an ETB that removes a psychic creature. On top of that, when it attacks, it returns all blockers to hand, allowing a clear path for you to go face. It also screws with a lot of decks that revolve around blockers, but I would say if your opponent doesn't play psychic creatures or any blockers in their deck, then it's just a double breaker. One more thing you might want to note, it returns all creatures that have blockers to their owner's hands, including yours, i.e. Aqua Guard. So if you're counting on Aqua Guard to block and survive another turn, you're gonna want to hold off attacking with this Super Paladin. Nonetheless, it's a very powerful card for aggro. I only play 2 because its effect sort of doesn't stack in the sense that, since one attacks and then you remove all the blockers, if you have a second Super Paladin, when it attacks, there's nothing left to remove. So it doesn't stack in that sense. So I don't play more than 2 because I just need 1. Second to last, we have 4 of the Vilvisvid Ultra Flash Evolution Liquid People Double Breaker. When this enters the battle zone, you may return one of your opponent's creatures to their owner's hands. Simple, straightforward bounce, what's there not to love? It's also pretty much your only removal played from hand, I would say. So this is something that you probably want to keep one of in your hand to rely on when you need to get rid of some of your opponent's pesky creatures. And lastly, your only shield trigger in the deck, we play 4 of Aqua Surfer. Shield trigger, when this enters the battle zone, you may return one of your opponent's creatures to their hand. An effective shield trigger that is also a Liquid People. You almost never get to play this from your hand. From a curve but also a value perspective, it just doesn't really make sense. There's usually just way more important things to be doing for 6 manas, but free from the shield, like why not, right? Okay, so that's my list, but let's go into some of the replacements that you might want to consider if you don't have every single card here. At 2 mana, we have this guy, Aqua Melge, another one we've seen many times. During your turn, once per turn, whenever another of your creature enters the battle zone, you may discard a card from your hand. if you do, draw a card. So it's a filtering effect, a liquid person. You know, filtering for a smoother curve is always a good benefit, but you know, it sort of just doesn't provide that direct benefit like the other two drops that we've actually included, like the draws and the draws on Jachinko, or the reduction in evolution. You know, because filter is sort of a zero, it sort of improves your hand perhaps. But if you have nothing else, this is still quite a good option. Into the 3 mana card replacements, we have more of these. At the 3 mana mark, we have a few alternatives for the early game creatures. One of it is of course the ever present Aqua Hulcus. Enter the battle zone, draw a card. So you know, why not? Fits the team, liquid people, and a draw. There's nothing to really dislike about it, just that it's a little bit less efficient than the Aqua Boy. The other one that we're going to take into consideration is Aqua Strummer here. When this creature enters the battle zone, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and return them to your deck in any order. So it's potentially useful to see and control what you're going to draw into, especially your evolutions. And you know, coming off Aqua Elite and that kind of stuff. Some people really like this card. I've seen people include this over a lot of things that to me doesn't make sense, but I guess that's a personal choice. I really don't like this option. I prefer Hulcus, for example, for a direct draw, but you know, to each their own. There's also Aqua Sonic Wave. When this enters the battle zone, you may return one of your opponent's creatures that has power 4000 or less to its owner's hands. Potentially lets you bounce a blocker, or you know, something of that sort to allow, you know, Aqua Hammer Price, or you know, the effect of large gathering Aqua Brothers to go through. But you know, in the current meta, you know, and especially at the points of the curve where you're likely to play this card, you probably don't really want to play it. You know, pretty much you only want to play it exactly on turn 3, or you know, after turn 6 I would say, and there usually aren't very suitable targets for its effect on those kind of turns. So you either a suboptimal play on turn 4, 5, 6 where you bounce something maybe that doesn't really give you much benefit. But of course I would say if you know the meta changes and you see a threat of something being more aggressive or faster than you, this might be something you want to consider. Another interesting thing that is happening is that people are starting to splash light into this deck, including things like, you know, Gaga Colorin, Capture Special Machine, as well as DNA Spark. Where is it? DNA Spark. So I would assume that they are doing this, you know, for a better matchup against a mirror match, or you know, sort of buying a turn if you're lucky. I would think, you know, if you get rushed, or you know, if you're attacking and then something goes wrong, you end up needing one more turn. This sort of provides you that one more turn. But you know, I have played against it and I lost to it, mainly because I didn't know what it was going to do. But in my personal opinion, I don't think it's worth it unless you're maybe in a tournament format. Then you might want to consider, because unless the meta is like 90 or 80% mirror matches, you're sacrificing a lot of efficiency for a matchup that you already like have a 50% shot at anyways. So I don't think it's a good addition in that sense. But you know, just sharing, this might be something you like, or something that you know fits your style a bit more, and something you want to consider. And yeah, so that's the deck for the ND ladder. I'm gonna show you the AD version of the deck. It's very similar. It has almost all of the same cards. The numbers you can just tweak with it yourself. But the more important thing is the addition of these two SRs. As in, they're the same SR, we play 2 copies of it. Supernova, Mercury, Gigablizzard. This is from DMPP07, so I don't think you're going to be opening any of those packs. You're probably going to have to craft them. Galaxy Vortex Evolution, 3 Great Mecha Kings, Grand Devils, and all Liquid People. So 3 of your creatures pretty much. It also has Sympathy of those 3 races, so any of those creatures you have, it reduces its cost by 1. And the effect, like the main effect, is going to be Meteor Burn 1. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, put a card under this creature into your graveyard, which is the Meteor Burn. If you do, that spell loses its effect. And Triple Breaker, of course. So while you can say that this card sort of provides you a creature that lets you scale a little bit more into the late game, and it does, the 15k power definitely lets it stick around for a little bit longer. The more important thing is that it gets 3 shots at negating spells, and it lets you attack without the fear of shield trigger spells. and also potentially helps you completely shut down spell-based decks for enough turns to win the game. It's not really value in the sense that 3 creatures is a lot to give up, but this is the kind of card that just wins games. You know, if you know your opponent's deck and you know your opponent isn't playing any spells, you know, don't hesitate to just toss this card to the mana, because sacrificing 3 creatures that could break 3 shields to have a triple breaker is actually not efficient if, you know, the negating spell effect doesn't do anything for you in the matchup. For both decks, no psychic creatures, but as usual I fill it with the standard things to make it not so obvious what I'm playing before turn 1. And that's it. This is a deck that helped me get Masters rank in both the new division and old division this season. My first double Masters season anyways. Definitely a top tier meta deck for this season. Not really a budget one in the sense that it has 4 SRs at least, but I believe it's cheaper than all the other decks that are around its power level, and I think in that sense maybe you do consider this deck budget or value at least. And yeah, keeping it short, just the deck profile for this video. You know, once I figure out how to record with my new computer, I'll upload like the gameplay for this deck, because all my games were played here and I can't record it off my mobile device anymore. If you guys have any other questions on the deck, you can just leave them down in the comment section below and I'll try my best to answer them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found this deck interesting. If you did, do help me drop a like on it to let me know, and I'll keep making more videos just like this one. And if you're new here, do consider subscribing to the channel to stay up to date with more Duel Masters plays and more mobile gaming content. Forget about the notification bell, just subscribing would mean a lot to me. And stay safe, bye bye.